Parm Sandhu rose to become Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police, and no other ethnic minority woman in the force's history has reached that level. But she has accused the Met of institutional racism after 30 years of service with the force.
Well, she's written a memoir. It's called Black and Blue, One Woman's Story of Policing and Prejudice. It's published this week. It's a jaw-dropping read. I was flicking through it last night. The examples of breathtaking racism are just traffic stopping. It's extraordinary. You'd think it had sort of gone in the modern policing world, but it hasn't. It's absolutely terrible. She recounts her journey through the ranks, some of the extraordinary cases that she covered. She was on duty. Well, we'll come to this, actually, in the interview, but we're going to speak to her in a second. First of all, Kira Durkin has her story.
And Parm Sandhu joins us now for her first live television interview since leaving the Metropolitan Police. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
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 Tell us about your experience. As Richard says, you experienced some jaw-dropping examples of racism and sexism within a force that was called institutionally racist after the inquiry into what went wrong after Stephen Lawrence's murder. And you say has not changed. So what happened and what needs to change?
I can give you two examples. One from early in my service when I went out on patrol with a fellow officer and I was racially abused in the street by members of the public. My colleague defended me and said, you can't use the P word and you can't call her that. So I thought, oh, finally I've been accepted. I'm part of the team. I'm part of the police service and they're going to look after me because I'm part of the team as such. That officer then went on and said, only we're allowed to call her the P word, you're not. So only police officers were allowed to call me that word, but members of the public weren't.
And this was in a confrontation with
members of the public.
A member of the public.
That's right.
And were you called, I mean, obviously it's a word we can't use
Yes.
on national television. I'm sure everybody knows what word we're alluding to, but were you called the P word amongst your colleagues?
I was, and this is like 25 years ago, so a long, long time ago. And you think that things are going to change. Then let's forward the clock to 2018. Now, I have worked in counter-terrorism, I've worked in community policing. I've got a varied career. In 2018, I changed into a different job. And I've been vetted to the highest level by security services, by everybody. And to get access to a particular part of the building at New Scotland Yard, I had to go and have an interview. And the email that I was sent was, we would like to discuss your Indian heritage. Now, you know, first of all, I thought it was a bit of a joke. Turned up for this interview and they said, how often do you go back? So first of all, I said, well, back to Handsworth, Birmingham.
That's where you were born?
Well, yeah.
Right.
And so I wasn't really sure what they meant. Then they explained that they wanted to know how often I went to India.
But you were born in Birmingham?
Absolutely. So I quite often I get people say, go back home, go, you know, return to where you come from.
Go back to Birmingham.
Where's that to? You know, am I going back to Birmingham or where else? So that was one of the, and this is 2018. And then we talk about...
when you were asked that question, how often do you go back?
Yeah.
Was there any sort of motivation behind that, do you think, beyond a sort of what you're suggesting was a racist assumption about your background? Because you're talking about being promoted and needing security clearance. Is there any explanation for why that question was asked?
There is a very clear and simple explanation, and that is the institutional racism which still exists in the Metropolitan Police. Now, the individual who sent me that email is not a racist. The policies and the practices of the Metropolitan Police have an unintended consequence, and that is racism. And I can prove that as well in that, how is it that there's an anonymous phone call that you can use, an anonymous phone line, and you can make allegations about fellow police officers. The majority of calls that come in on that line are about Black and Asian officers. That speaks volumes. Why is it that when I was a chief superintendent, most of us, 3/4 of us, were being investigated for malicious allegations, and these are all allegations made by colleagues, not by members of the public. Because when you look at the complaints procedure, the complaints that come in from the public are the same. They're comparable between white and black officers. And, you know, one thing I do have to say is there are a lot of police officers who are in the police service for the right reasons. They are kind, they are considerate, irrespective of colour. That's white officers as well. And I had the privilege to work alongside them.
Are you suggesting that there is still a culture of racism within the police, or that there are examples where it hasn't, you know, bad apples which haven't been removed? Are you suggesting that there is a pervasive problem?
Institutional racism.
The police.
I am suggesting that. No, I'm not suggesting, I'm saying it. I am saying that there is institutional racism within the Metropolitan Police Service.
Well, let's talk about your feelings about this as a human being. I mean, there you are, rising through the ranks, working your socks off, getting promoted on merit based on your performance and your target scoring and all the rest of it. And you're doing very well, irrespective of the colour of your skin. And yet there is this persistent sniping going on. You talk about the use of the P word and many other examples. If you
Well,
think
the
basically,
smearing of black and ethnic minorities.
absolutely, are being abused on an almost daily basis in a casual way. How would it make you feel after you maybe just signed off on a very successful investigation or case, you knew you'd done your job well, and then somebody makes a sneering comment based on the colour of your skin? How did that make you feel inside?
Well, inside, you feel that you give 150%, and I have had the honour of working alongside very good officers. You give 150%. You want to be judged on your merit and your qualities and your skill set. And again, this goes back to positive action, positive discrimination as well.
But I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, would you go home at the end of an otherwise successful day, having been abused again, would you go home just feeling sick to your stomach that you were having to put up with this?
Absolutely. You do go home, and the only way that you get through these challenges is through your friends, your family, and the support you get outside of the organisation. You do have friends within, but it's your external people that help you the most.
The most important thing, of course, is that this culture needs to change, and presumably it starts from the top.
Yes.
Have you had meetings with Cressida Dick about this?
I have. After my last investigation, I actually asked Cressida to help me, not to quash the investigation.
These were unfounded allegations that were made against you, and that came to absolutely nothing, we have to say. It was
That's right.
Total nonsense. Fine, so you're going to see Cressida,
Well, Cressida asked to see me, and she said, what can I do to help? And I told her what she could do, and that was speed up the investigation. She then turned around and said that she couldn't intervene. So for 18 months, I wasn't allowed to do my day job. All I could do was push paper. If you're under investigation, you get restricted, which means you can't have contact with the public, you can't do press and media stuff, you can't talk to partners, so the community, the council, the community, NGOs, anything.
You're isolated.
Yeah, so you're restricted.
What were you accused of?
The accusation was that I'd either asked people to nominate me for the Queen's Peace Medal, Police Medal, or for that the comments that had been made that I had worked within counter-terrorism, I'd worked within community policing, they were false. I'd never done that work.
So this was complete cobblers?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, absolute nonsense.
And you say were smears based on racism?
Every time I went for promotion, there was a smear campaign. Every time I went for promotion, there were false allegations leaked to the press and the media. And being of colour sells newspapers. And so, of course, the media are going to be interested. But unfortunately, that's the majority of us at senior levels are then targeted as a smear campaign.
You must have reflected on this, Parm. You must have thought, why? What is it in the human psyche, in these racist individuals? What is it about them that makes them either frightened of you or suspicious of you or hostile towards you? What is it, you know, as a total non-racist, I don't get it. I don't understand that kind of racism. You must have reflected on it. What do you think is going on in their minds? What is it that bothers them about you because of the colour of your skin?
The police service wants black and Asian officers to join, and they are joining, which is good. But what they want to do is they want to keep people at a certain level. As soon as you start asking for more, as soon as you start pushing at that door and saying, I can get promoted, I've got the skills, that's when it starts going horribly wrong.
Why do you think that is? What are they frightened of?
Because they want the numbers, but they don't want them at the same level as certain individuals, and they certainly don't want black and Asian people in positions of power.
Over them?
Yes. And so when you keep knocking on that door and you keep saying, I'm good enough, I can prove it, that's when that core of officers, that group of people start targeting you.
I'm not surprised you left. Because you did, in the end, you did. You just thought...
I had to leave early because I just couldn't... There's only a certain amount of battles you can fight.
Absolutely.
And I started to... It was too much for me to take home. It was affecting my family life. And I just couldn't do it. But my intention had been to work a number of years,
And one looks at your record. I mean, you were on duty. You were the senior officer on duty when Lee Rigby was beheaded.
That's right.
And it was, and you were in part of the reactive force that had to deal with that, and many other very, very violent and unpleasant crimes that you were in the front line of. You did your job in an exemplary manner.
Yeah.
And this is how you end up.
Yes.
Because your parents came here from India.
Because my parents, my family are from India. They were immigrants. They couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak English when I went to school. And it's only through perseverance and hard work that people like me, we're not victims. We're not survivors, we're fighters.
Didn't your mother once tell you never to buy your own house here because otherwise people would throw bricks through the window?
Yeah, my mum and dad were in this country when, you know, there were signs on doors saying you can't rent here, you can't live here. And they lived through the Enoch Powell era as well.
Yeah.
So she used to have a suitcase packed underneath the bed saying, if we get kicked out, we've got to be able to run out that door. And I don't know where they're going to repatriate us to. And my family is so mixed.
Back to Birmingham.
Well, I think so. But even my family is so mixed within the Jamaican culture as well. My sister-in-law is Jamaican. So where do you separate families to? Where do you send us back to?
I know.
That's the question.
It's just nonsensical.
It's the most ridiculous
Parm, it's really good
thing.
to talk to you.
Thank you.
It's a fascinating read, it really is. It's called Black and Blue. Now then, in a statement, we've obviously spoken to them. The Met Police say that they have made no admissions of liability in respect of the allegations that are made in this book. And before her retirement, Parm was a very senior operational leader, they say. They say, we are saddened by her decision to make such personal allegations in the media. The Met apparently have not seen a copy of this book pre-publication and therefore wasn't asked about that. The Commissioner's strong record as a senior police leader dedicated to improving police legitimacy and to improving trust and confidence in their approach to diversity and equality, says the Met, speaks for itself. And they also add that we know too many colleagues of all backgrounds will have faced challenges at times in their careers and the treatment they consider unfair or unkind. Where discrimination exists, we root it out. And we will continue to do so. That's their statement. That's not your experience.
No,
that's all one can say. That's not your experience.
Parm, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
All right.